You know, you don't have to look very far in this world to see that there's a lot of people that are dealing with stuff they seem to have no control over. Well, today on Daily Renewal, we're going to look at our own lives and analyze whether there's stuff that we need to take care of that has power over us. Because it's God's design for us to be able to live in such an abundant life that nothing has power over us. Hello everybody, this is Pastor Lyle and welcome to Daily Renewal. We're going to continue our series today on the abundant life, and I just want to encourage you, take a look back at some of our other videos in the series, and you realize that one of the things that is really key to having an abundant life, we see in Galatians 5:22, and that's called the fruit of the Spirit, which is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And depending on the translation you're reading, it might self-control might be looked at as temperance. You know, when I first became a believer, I had things in my life that I was very ashamed of. And, for the most part, I thought I was a pretty good person. But there was things that I picked up along the way that I thought, I can't go to church because people will realize that I smoked and drank and did things that I look back now, and I'm not trying to glorify at all, but things that were bondages in my life. And a pastor said to me, he said, Lyle, God's not as concerned about your sin as you think he is. He's more concerned about you cultivating a relationship with him. And he says, if you focus on your relationship with him, he says, the sin in your life will fall off your life like leaves off of a tree. And I thought to myself, yeah, right. If that was the case, everybody'd be doing this. Well, you know what was amazing? Is I remember the day that I got delivered of smoking. I was smoking a pack and a half of cigarettes a day, and I remember my walk with God was progressing, and I was excited because God was doing things in my life. And it just worked out that the day that this happened, I actually gave my cigarettes away to somebody, and I never desired another cigarette again. Now, it doesn't happen like that for everything. And in fact, even drinking, I had a long line of alcoholism in my family. And, people might say, well, the Bible doesn't say you can't drink. Yeah, but the problem is I had a problem with that. And so to be free from that, anybody that has that kind of an addiction, you could sit there and try to justify it all day. But if you know it's a bondage and you're free from it, it makes a big difference in your life, especially in accordance of how abundant your life is. So today, let's take a look at 1 Corinthians. And in 1 Corinthians 9, starting in verse 24, it says, do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may obtain it, and everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things. And I'm going to stop right there. Now, this is important because let's remember the word temperate is also translated self-control. In other words, we need to look at this race that we are talking about, or that we look at as life, the race of life. It says we need to be self-controlled in all things. Well, I've been in church long enough to realize that a lot of times when we look at stuff like smoking and your relationships with people like the opposite sex, or pornography, or drinking, a lot of these things we look at in the church as being, you can't do these things. And really, if you are participating in these things, they can definitely be, and most likely are, a bondage. But why is it that there's other things that we see, even as Christians, that we don't even look at as being a big deal? So I submit to you, the first thing that we have to do when it comes to self-control is analyze our lives and ask the Lord, is there anything in my life that truly is a bondage to me? And for me, I'll tell you what it became. I'm putting a picture up on the screen here of me in 2009. Now, as you can tell, I look a lot different in 2009 than I do now. In 2009, I weighed 240 pounds. I was preaching the gospel. I had what everybody would, or a lot of people would have considered a very successful ministry. and yet I probably wouldn't have admitted that I had a real problem. Now, I'm not trying to fat shame everybody. I'm giving you the story of one of the things that was a bondage to me. I had a lot of stress in my life, and the way that I dealt with it, I dealt with it in my relationship with God for the most part, but I probably wouldn't have admitted at the time. But food was definitely a bondage to me. I often turned to food as being something that comforted me in a time when I needed it or thought I needed comfort. And as a result, I had health problems. I had back problems. My back would go out almost every week. Now, I say that to say this: I am so glad that God began to deal with me about this problem that I had in being in bondage to food. I eat a lot differently than I did, and I'm probably down to about 170 pounds. And probably I don't think I've felt this good since I was in my 20s. So be encouraged. But I say that to say this: just because I've got some self-control in that area, and this is while I was a Christian. As a Christian, I realize that the battle for self-control over things to do with my flesh, or the things to do with what please me, is a constant battle. I may have gotten victory over this battle for my weight, but there's other things in my life that are constantly trying to get my attention and constantly trying to get me to put in place of God, or to put in a place where I spend more attention, or I can't divert from it because it has ensnared me. So for the next couple sessions, we are going to be talking about how to gain self-control over things in your life that have maybe taken the place of God. So let's continue with 1 Corinthians. In verse 25, it said, "And everyone who competes for a prize is temperate or self-controlled in all things. Now they do it to obtain a perishable crown, but we an imperishable crown. Therefore I run thus. Not with uncertainty, thus I fight, not as one who beats the air, but I discipline my body and bring it unto subjection, lest when I have preached to others, I myself should become disqualified." Our attitude has to be, I want to be in a place where there's nothing in my life that comes before Jesus. And if we look a little further down, and we go on in this, in chapter 10, there's a great list. I did a series on this as well, you can look at in our Daily Renewal series. But I want to focus primarily on verse 7 of chapter 10, where it says this: "And do not become idolaters as were some of them, as it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play." Well, if you do research on this, what was happening here is that people were having trouble disconnecting from pagan idolatry that they were connected to in the past. And I think that as we continue in this series of self-control, it's very important that we look at what kind of things we have picked up from our culture that have control of us. And so as we look through in this series, I encourage you, do some analysis. Look into your life. What kind of things are in your life? Maybe it's coffee. Oh, that one. Whoa, I just touched a holy cow on that one. If you can't give up coffee, then really, are you going to let a cup of coffee get in front of Jesus as far as what you consider to be important in your life? If you can't give that up, then you're in trouble. Food, another one. I remember a time when I use food as an example. I remember a time where I couldn't even have fasted a full day. I heard guys that used to joke about the fact that when they fast in between meals. Well, that's, if food has that much control over us, then it's an indication that Jesus isn't our number one. Can you allow the Lord to reach into your life and strip away anything that comes before him? Because if there is something before him, then that is what we would call an idol. And here it says we need to be very careful that idolatry doesn't creep into our life. Now, if it does, don't feel condemned over it, but that's why we're doing this series, is I'm going to show you in the next couple sessions on how you can combat idolatry in your life. But the first step is you've got to admit it's there. Well, I hope you got something out of that today. I just want to continue to remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button. Share the video with your friends. Also, like us on Facebook. We're on Twitter and Instagram. If you're in the Kamloops area, drop by River City Church. We'd love to have you. Having said that, have a great day, and God bless you.